Okay. I'm going to declare the quorum and call the City of Groton Committee of the Whole for Monday, March 25th, 2019 to order. Clerk Patrick, please call the roll.
Present are Mayor Keith Hedrick, Deputy Mayor Lawrence Garrett, Councilors Jill Rust, Jamal Beckford, Stephen Sheffield, Finance Director Ron Uhas, Clerk Deborah Patrick. Excused are Councilors Guinevere Depot and Rashad Carter.
Okay. We're going to skip around a little bit. We're going to start out with 698, which is a CAFR overview and auditor presentation. Ron?
We have Scott Bassett here with us from RSM. He's the partner on our audit. So he's going to give you an overview of the report, which was in the package that was sent out.
So we're going to start with the larger booklet. This is the white booklet. For the record, my name is Scott Bassett. I'm an audit partner with RSM, and we are engaged by the city to conduct the audit putting in year-end of June 30, 2018. Everything in this book is a representation of management other than our opinion. And the opinion that was rendered on those things this year was a clean opinion, unmodified opinion. Ron and his staff and the folks in the utilities pull everything together, and our job is to come and audit those assertions. Going through the process this year, I think a couple things to note. This is 6 months. The year end is June 30, 2018. Ron and his staff pull everything together. But as auditors, when we come in, one of the things we do, if there's a ton of audit adjustments, makes us a little, I'd say, nervous as auditors because it's a representation of how accurate is the information as you get it during these meetings during the course of the year. As we receive the information from Ron and folks at the electric and water, everything was very, very clean, very minimal audit adjustments. In the current year, and we talked about this last year, there was one significant accounting standard that was issued during the year. The city had always disclosed under generally accepted accounting principles what this OPEB liability was, other post-employment benefit liabilities. In the current year, the profession had each municipality adopt that standard. So from a net position standpoint, you have your governmental funds and you have your business-like funds. There's about a $10 million increase in liabilities based on, and nothing changed other than how you present it. That we always knew what that number was, but how the guy you had us do it is to present it a little bit different in the current year. We talked about it in prior year. But what I will say about your OPEB is you do have trust and it is funded. And probably it's at 37%, I believe, funded, and that's higher than the averages out there in the state of Connecticut. So you're moving forward with the funding of that. I do a lot in the large cities across the state, and if you would see the size of some of these OPEB liabilities, you'd be quite surprised. I mean, $300-400 million of liabilities out there for these other post-employment benefits in some of these communities. So, and most of them are unfunded. So if you look at that way, so a good step there. I think another item that is important within the financial statements is the funded level of your pension trust fund. We talked about that in the past. And that level was almost 95% of the pension liability. And just to kind of put it in perspective, the national average is a little bit below 70. But in most states throughout the country, if you have a defined benefit plan, state statutes would make you contribute to the ARP. In Connecticut, we don't have that. So if you look to other communities across the state, you'd see funded levels of 35-40%. And basically, they haven't had the discipline to contribute to that ARP each year. So if you just, some highlights of the statements, I would say those are two big numbers. But what it also shows, I think, when Ron and the utilities go to a rating agencies, that you see that discipline, okay, that you might not see in other communities or other folks doing that. So that's certainly a plus. It takes, again, I just use the word discipline to do that. Your general fund is your fund that you adopt a budget for, and your fund balance at the end of the year is about 30% of this, close to $17 million worth of expenditures. And someone might say, well, 30%, that sounds high. But really, I always look at it based on the size of your budget. the smaller the budget, the higher that number should be, because, $3 or $4 million in a storm or whatever, what have you, would eat that up pretty quickly. So, when you hear 30%, you might compare it to a larger city. I would just compare, okay, what is that 30% represent, and how much money is it in certain instances? The electric and water, both had an increase this year, from operations. The electric department increased by $4.2 million in the current year, and the water department increased by $3.1 million, so positive cash flows generated there. Fund balance of the general fund did go down a little bit, about $790,000 compared to the prior year. The internal service fund had a small increase, about $300,000. Really, this is your medical self-insurance funds, things that you budget and watch. So, those numbers from a medical self-insurance, basically, it all depends on your experience in the current year, and then trends from one way to the other. So, that could go down $310,000 next year, but it wouldn't be anything that you've done differently. It would be just some bad experience, and the consultants take that into account. The pension trust funds and the OPEB funds, you almost had about $90 million in investments in the current year. And so that's a big portfolio. If you think about $90 million that you're measuring here against those liabilities. So certainly you have a mix in your portfolio. It's averaged out in different type of vehicles, investment vehicles. And what we do there is we audit for fair value. So if there's alternative investments, we go through a process to audit those. So we give an opinion on that pension trust funding and on those investments. And we had no problem going through there. But quite honestly, that takes up a big part of our audit, is the audit of the investments. So there's a lot of things moving there. Talk a little bit about the pension trust funds. I'll just walk you through these numbers quickly so you can see where they are. But what I did want to say is the kind of financial highlights that I just went over right now. Ron and the team put together a management discussion and analysis that's probably 6 or 7 pages long, and it hits the financial highlights of this booklet. So this is about a 150-page booklet. If you wanted to direct somebody, hey, what happened within the city this year, I would certainly direct them to that management discussion and analysis. It goes through a lot of these items, and if you wanted to get to detail, you can walk back to the survey to the footnotes and things of that nature. So I think I'm going to turn you to about 45 pages into the report. It's page 13. So, page 13 is really, this is the full rule basis of accounting. The governmental activities, really won't see this except once a year, to be quite honest with you. It's a requirement under GAAP that we pull all the long-term assets and long-term liabilities included in here. And so the city, which is mainly your governmental funds, ended the year with $27 million of net position. The bulk of that, as you can imagine, is your investments in roads and infrastructure and things of that nature. From business type, which is your electric and water, $48 million with the net position. And again, the bulk of that included in there is your investment in all your infrastructure assets, your utility assets and things. So heavy investments in there. So pretty straightforward. Bosra Light and Power, that's a component unit of the city. They also had to adopt this new GASB this year, and that had a bigger impact on Bosra, just because their liability was almost $1 million, I believe, at the beginning of the year. So that was one, I think, from a materiality standpoint, Bosra had to bring that liability in, and Ron and the team had the actuaries come in and do that work for them. But that, just so you know, that loss rolls over to your investment in Bosra Light and Power as it sits on the electric company. Turning to page 15. 15 is where I talked about the fund balances, and the general fund is your operating fund, and that number, that 30%, represents about $5 million with the unassigned fund balance. That's on the, I'd say, bottom half of the page, actually. So nothing unusual there. You do have $400,000 assigned in the current year for the 18-19 budget that's being used. But really no surprises this year from the general fund. Pretty quiet year. Everything was pretty straightforward. The general fund had an increase of fund balance of $794,000. That's on page 16. For the year, bringing the fund balance from 4.8 up to 5.6 in the current year. So that's a big fund. That's the operating fund. I don't know if you guys have questions on it or the details.
Councilor Sheffield?
Did you evaluate the sewer financials? Was there a breakout in that financial at all?
In this current year, the sewer was still in the general fund. So
Okay.
next year, you'll see when this report comes out, it'll be an enterprise fund, similar to how the electric and water, So
Okay.
that'll happen next
Yeah,
month.
so that process will bring the assets off those government-wide, and so it'll be a little bit of a process as you pull that all together, but,
But I do think that a lot of communities go through that analysis about a sewer fund. Should it be self-supporting or just how it's accounted for? So once it becomes an enterprise fund, it'll be almost like a business-type model, like revenues, expenditures, depreciation, all that good stuff, and measuring the use of the assets and see how it's really operating from a business standpoint. So, probably the right presentation, if you ask me, if I go, other communities have approached me on it. If it's supposed to be self-supporting means you cover the replacement and the depreciation and things like that.
That's what we're doing. We moved it out of the general fund in July of last year.
Okay,
So it has not been standalone for a full year yet, but it is an enterprise account along with electric and water underground utilities. So I suspect that next year, once we have a full year runtime on it, you'll be able to audit that
yeah,
and have comment on that.
yeah, absolutely. Talked about the electric and water. Electric end of the year with 13 million of net position, which is on page 19, and the water department end of the year with $34 million of net position. Turning to page 23. So page 23 is the trust funds, and I just wanted to show you where the type of vehicles that you're invested in. You can see that you have a nice mix there of different type of investments that you go through. Equities and mutual funds obviously are a bulk of it, but you have a nice mix to offset that in the current year.
And just as a reminder to the council, we do have a retirement board that oversees these funds.
So in the 2018 year, just to give you a little bit, that fund returned about a little bit over 7%. The year before that was about 11%. So, it is a snapshot. It is a point in time. June 30th is when we measured, July 1st to June 30th. So a 7% return. I would say what I saw this year, probably right, 6.8, 6 point, so right in the ballpark with some of the other larger investment portfolios that I've seen. The rest of the statement is a lot of notes, but I think the big one there is going to be long-term debt footnote, which is note 7. That's on page 44. And you did issue some new debt during the year, about almost $6 million for the sewer treatment plant. And the normal pay downs, we did have some new electric bond notes in addition to that. Overall, I believe your total debt increased about $9 million from last year, from 2017 to 2018. But nothing unusual there. We do talk about the related parties in note 9, being CMEC being the significant one. And we also talk about the 2 major taxpayers within the city. There's a lot of footnotes on the pension plans. What I've been finding easier to do is to take you back to the required supplementary information, which is on page 65. So the first schedule there is where your your schedule of contributions, what the actuaries recommended, and what you've contributed to those. So as you could go through there, you know, pretty good return of making those required contributions. On page 66 is you can see the trend of your investment returns on that pension trust fund over the last 5 years. We mentioned that the fund is on page 67, remains, you know, very, very well funded at 95%. I'm sure there's no discussion on that when you go to the rating agencies, other than good job, as they go take a look at that. And then the OPEB plan, I really think that's something, you know, 37%, you say, well, in my opinion, based when you compare to other communities, 37% is very, very good. So something to look at there. As that gets, the percentage goes up, you're going to get to use a more favorable discount rate, and as you use a more favorable discount rate, your funding level goes up. So it's something to take a look at. That's actuarial standards, but a lot of the there's a lot of this report is really actuarial based. There's probably 25 pages in here that really relate to the actuaries and the pension and the OPEB. You know, we come in and audit those, just so you know, what we do, we're not actuaries, but we have internal actuaries that take a look at the process and the assumptions that are being used, and we compare, they take a look at those, and they're all compared to be reasonable and accepted within those actuarial standards. So overall, I think it was a good year for the city. I think you know, an increase in fund balance in your general fund, positive returns in both the water and sewer in the current year. Your pension and OPEB remain well funded. Your internal service fund had an increase this year. So if you kind of look at some of the things that you would look at as you, from a budget process or just risk areas, I think you look at some of those type of things and say, okay, we did pretty good on each of those. Tax collection stayed strong. But in the current year, you also had some federal money that came in that you haven't had in the past. And we audited that program, and you received a clean opinion on that program too. It was drinking water funding. So that was a little bit different than what we've had in the past. Everything we needed or asked, it was given to us. We didn't encounter any disagreements with management about accounting principles or things that everybody, you know, as an auditor, when you have an inquiry, you want an answer, and then we were able to substantiate that. On all departments and everywhere, we all were able to receive that type of response back.
Council, any questions?
Yeah, I wanted just a clarification. You
Sure.
said there was just a $1 million increase in liabilities?
$9 million.
$9 million.
$9 million in debt. I think you
Okay.
can see that, I think it's in the MD&A, actually.
What?
Yep, so $9 million in the debt. I think if you look at page 12. That first chart right here, page 12. So you issued some debt and retired some debt during the current year, which was an increase of the $9 million. And your liabilities, it was a $10 million increase from the OPEB from where it was, but that wasn't anything you did differently. That was just the measure of the liability, how the GASB had us do it. So
Okay.
nothing internal drove that.
Okay, anything else, Council? Councilor Sheffield?
No, I'm good.
Oh. Anything? Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Appreciate it.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
All right, the next one is 728, space needs discussion. Carl?
Hey, good evening. So I'm here just to get you caught up on space study. We signed a contract probably a month ago with BL companies to look at if we could go up. It was feasible to go up on there. The first part of the study came in, and they said it is feasible to go up over one of the sections of the building and enclose the front steps of the front entrance area, because that's where they would foresee the elevator going to a second floor. The feasibility piece to that was that they had to look at that to make sure the structure could hold it. There are some small elements that they need to put in down the basement, but it's not a full foundation. So now they look at the cost savings and start drawing the picture. They don't want to spend our money if that structural piece says we couldn't support or hold up a second story on this building, then they wouldn't proceed. They would actually give us money back on the contract to not do the rest of that study. But it was proven, the first piece was proven out, and so now they will proceed, tell us what the cost savings are, and compared to building a brand-new foundation building on there, and then also give you some pictures so that you can see what the process may look like.
I'm sorry, we're looking at building on this side?
Councilor Russ, on the east side.
Yeah, currently they're looking at that side of the facility to build on,
Thank
not
you.
in the center. And in front of the air conditioner, so they don't touch any of the air conditioning that's currently been in place. And it's 8,000 to 10,000 square feet they're looking at. Our space study came in at that number. That's the reason they're looking at that. That's what the needs were of the departments.
So what we're looking at now, first thing was, could we do it or not? Answer is yes. Second thing is, how much is it gonna cost? How much is it gonna cost compared to if we did foundation work out here on the ground? So that as soon as they get us that number, then we'll come back to the council. Anything on that? Okay, go ahead with the second part.
The second part is what we call the old credit union. We still haven't named it anything else, so everybody knows it as that. We have chipped up the floor and replaced flooring down in the basement. We have wired it for internet. We are working towards putting badge control on there. The new lights will be going in April 3rd, and then we will be doing testing for the air testing, the mold, air quality, to make sure we don't have anything else down there that we're not aware of. We did asbestos testing a long time ago, and there's no asbestos down there on the particles that is above the ceiling, so we knew that was clean. And then we can earmark somebody to go down there, or swing space. As remember, we talked about this being swing space based on the needs of who's got the worst place right now that really needs the help the most.
So we are getting that space ready so we can start our first move. And then once we move people down there, then we're gonna be renovating the space that was just evacuated. And then we'll rinse and repeat. Councilor Rusk.
Are we able to just renovate that space once? So are we doing like a meeting room and a couple office spaces, or are we gonna, I just don't wanna constantly be reinventing
So we don't
that space.
we anticipate using the space as it is down there, and not doing any real renovations to it until it's the last group that may go down there.
Okay.
On there.
One of the things that we still have not firmed is, because there's two ways to do this. Actually, there's probably more than two, but two that we're looking at. One, do you identify who's gonna ultimately end up there and move them first? That way they get moved once, and then the next group gets moved once, and then that. Or do you use that as swing space, move them, renovate, move them back, and then do the next group? So we are looking at the impacts of that. I'm looking at my downside risk and the impact to employees and productivity and all those kinds of things. But a decision has not been made as to which path we're going to choose.
Do we have any sort of idea on who would be best to go up, who would be best to go down? Who needs to stay on this main
So
level?
that's more of a permanent question. If we're going up, and the architect would then help us outfit that. What departments, if you remember, we talked about putting the planning, economic development, building department all as one department at one time. For us to do that in the basement, we had to add 1,500 square feet. Is that feasible? Or is it better to have all of Groton utility on one side, up on there? That's gonna be the architect who did looking at the blocks, who best fits everywhere.
And, once we're nowhere near that, but at some point, we're gonna have to come up with a plan, who's gonna go where, when, where. Also, while construction is going, we're gonna need to evacuate some people out of there, because you're gonna be working directly above them, slinging steel and things like that. So, and that's part of a plan that I will bring to you, but that we will bring to you, bring to council. But that's probably not till later this year or next year.
Yeah, it'd probably be later this year. We're waiting for those final costs to come in. Where do we get the most money for our dollar?
Right. Okay. Any other questions on either up or down for the space study? Okay. Oh, you do, okay,
I
sorry.
just wanted to ask Colin, do we still have the original plans, construction plans to this building?
Yes, and then, yes, we do. And we actually, that was the first part of the investigation, to prove that those construction plans, the actual steel was in place. And that's what we were doing, to say, okay, this is what the load is for this floor. And all those were verified. They
Well,
did
I
exactly what
remember-
those plans called.
Remember when the building was built?
Sure.
And it was supposedly built so we could put another level or on the top if we had to, so I'm not surprised that you found out that we could.
Yeah, it seemed like there was minimal, from the first part of the structural engineer, was going down the basement, and in between the columns, there would be another column put in its place to pick up the weight, shorten the span, in other words.
Right.
So the exterior can go up. The outside walls become the diaphragm at that point, structural steel set over that, and then that's pointed down to point loads on into the basement, without disturbing anybody on the first floor.
Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, that's it, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next one is 745 corrosion repair and refurbishment for the fire department. Chief, oops, sorry, Chief Tompkins. We gotta have two chiefs, sorry. My apologies.
All right, I think you have in front of you the packet we had handed out before. We came before you when we were talking about repurposing bond money. It was one of the issues that we talked about. Since then, through discussions with the mayor and the finance director, I think they've tried to move it up, and we're going to use some funds we have, capital funds that Ron feels that we can use at this time, since we're partway through the year and we're doing okay. Ron can speak on that. I can answer any questions. Obviously, it's our engine down at Company 2, Engine 2 we call it. We bought it in 2005. Earlier in the fall, it went for some work up in Rocky Hill, where they service it, and at Firematic, and they found corrosion on the rails. So when they investigated that, the rail is now under spec. There's a threat, they make it a certain thickness, and they'll let it go a little thinner, but it's below that. So we are still currently using it. We do have a DOT sticker for it at this time, but it needs to be fixed. The design was a bad design. I think Tim, in talking to Tim, I'm not a truck person, but the rail has basically two C's, and besides the corrosion, it also has a lot of water gets between the two pieces of steel and starts to corrode, and so now has spots where it's separating. So they obviously won't, it needs to be fixed. The manufacturer, since it's below spec, will not, guarantee it any longer in any way, shape, or form. So they did give us an estimate, along with the rail repair. You'll see a little list there of other things to be fixed, some of which are things that are broken on the truck right now. The cab lift, to get to the engine, does not work properly. Some of the other things listed here are things that they found that over time there's corrosion in the compartments, there's corrosion on some of the doors. So if we're going to move forward with this, and they will literally lift the body off of the frame, put a new frame in place, put the body back down. So in doing that, they like to do things while it's apart. And they have done this before, and they know that there are certain things that are gonna be rusted out underneath there that they have to work on. There are a couple of line items, the inspection trip, that's something that we would not pay to go out and inspect it. I mean, when you build a truck, they build in trips to go out, usually twice to go out and inspect what's going on. But we're not gonna spend $5,000 to go out there and inspect this repair, in essence. And also the brakes, unfortunately, in the meantime, we had to have the brakes done, so the brakes would not need to be done again. So that's almost $12,000 off of that bottom number. With that said, I think Ron would normally put 10% on top of it, so the 12,000 would go back. Ultimately, it'd be like 139,727 would be everything listed here minus the trip and the brakes, with the 10% contingency. That I think Ron would,
You know, we'll put it not to exceed.
yeah, I don't know how that
But
works,
just
but,
because you don't know when they get that body,
Sure.
there's gonna be something
Right.
else
yeah.
that they couldn't say.
And if you read through here, you'll see that numerous times. They talk about different inspections they'll do, and then that's not included. They'll contact you if there's stuff they deem necessary.
All right, two things. Oh, whoop,
No, go
Councilor
ahead.
Russ, go ahead. Two things. One, how long is it gonna be out of service until we get it back?
The time frame they gave us was when we signed the contract, you'll be on the list. It'll take 3 to 4 months to get your number up, and then it'll be out in Wisconsin for about 3 months.
Okay. And secondly, once this repair's done, what does that do to the useful life of the truck?
Well, it's a 2005. We'd like to try and get 20 years out of the trucks. When they bought this in 2005, it was a lesser model, if that's the term. Money was tight, so it's a good truck, but it wasn't the top of the line.
No heated seats?
Yeah, there's no heated seats, but there might be power windows. No, there's no power windows in that one. Now you can't. I wish you didn't have power windows. You know, this is a lot easier to fix than. But we definitely, by doing this, should get 10, 15 years. I'm hoping everything will be done, really, but the engine on these big trucks are made to, last. They're not like a car. It's not like 10 years and the thing's gonna break down.
So that's the good news. The good news is we get 15 more years out of this.
Yeah.
What's the bad news?
That'll-
Well, what is
That
the-
might be long past all of us, but it'll be a crash of the engine and ladder truck at headquarters are 2009s. So 20 years for that engine would put it, in line with this engine, in
So
line
not
with the ladder
staggered
truck. So
anymore.
you'd have all three kind of coming in that same general
So you have
timeframe.
3 big ticket items coming within, say, what, 2-3 year time frame? So one of the things we're gonna talk internally, staff and I are gonna talk about, and then I need to come up with a plan to present to a council, or at least either a council or my relief, on how to put money aside so that, either that or we plan on bonding. Right, that's what we've had to do in the past, right? Is that true? Bonding or no?
There was one of the trucks we got a grant for it, the ladder truck. And there may have been
I'm not sure.
There may have been a little bit of bonding with the
Yeah.
ladder on top of that grant.
I'm not sure with this one, when we bought the 2009 engine and ladder truck, we were replacing the ladder truck, and we did receive a grant for almost $900,000.
Okay.
So at the time, they decided that since we had already had money, I don't think it was bonded, I don't know if they bonded a little bit of it, but since they had that money already, they bought, and they were getting the grant, they bought the engine at the same time, basically using the same money that they already were gonna for the ladder truck, so it worked out great.
Councilor Russ?
How much does this cost new? Like if we had to buy a whole new one instead of just
Oh,
getting
new?
it fixed?
$500,000.
That's
They keep
something
going,
that,
they don't get cheaper.
that's something that
It's
we
crazy.
looked at. Deputy Mayor Garrett?
I was gonna ask, Chief, you say you're still using that vehicle now, right?
Yeah.
So when it's laid up, that'll leave you short. Do you have what would be the plan to
Usually we, so when we buy a new engine, we'll put the old engine into reserve. So we have a 1993 reserve engine down at Company 2. That will be something we'll have to look at. We will put that front line, and that will take the place of this engine. Why I say we'll have to look at it is that by extending the life of this engine, which normally would be looking to replace it in, 6 years or so, by extending it out, that truck we have now is not gonna last that long. So, I don't know. I don't know what we'll do, if we'll need a reserve. It's always been the mentality, but I just not sure that we will need a reserve piece. That's something we have to, and have been having discussions, internally with the officers, if we just use mutual aid for the times where the truck was down and things like that.
But for right now, we should not have a loss of capability
No.
because of the reserve truck. I think that's what you might have been getting
Yeah.
at.
Yeah, we have a reserve engine that also is ready to, ready to go. It's equipped almost, it's equipped to run out the door right now, but we'll move some of the additional equipment over onto that, and that will run in the 3 months. So we will still have the 2 engines in the ladder truck.
Councilor Rossi?
And Wisconsin is the only place that does this? I mean, that just seems so far away. I do
Pierce
the drive a lot, but.
Yeah, this is the manufacturer. So
Okay.
Pierce
Got
is
it.
the manufacturer.
Kansas can't do that?
Carnes.
They can do a lot.
We'd have to build a new bay. We'd have to bond for that, so,
Can we work with EB New Bay? No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
so,
Yeah, that's the manufacturer, so
Okay.
that's where they have their refurb facility. It's out there.
okay. Anything else on this? I need a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of April 1st.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, I need a motion
Chief.
to amend the agenda to add 2 line items, 749, which is Beach and Park Memorial Procedures, and 750 Service Station Equipment.
What was the second one, I'm sorry?
I want to add 2 line items to the agenda. One is 749, which is Beach and Park Memorial Procedures, and 750, which is Service Station Equipment.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention? Okay, the first one is 749, Mary. This is Beach and Park Memorial Procedures. I think this was on your, at your seats when you came in, hopefully.
Good evening. So in 2005, there was a resolution put in place for memorial, the memorial benches that we have at the beach. There's also memorial trees and memorial stones for around the flagpole. When we started looking at the language of this resolution that was put into place, 13 years ago, there's some areas that we'd like to have covered. One of the areas that they wanted to add with the memorial benches is that a family can purchase a bench. They can purchase a brand-new bench, have it made, put a plaque on it, or they can get a refurbished bench, same thing, they pay for it. We put it into location, an agreed-upon location at the beach or Griswold Point, and then it's there. And the problem that's come over, we have 15 at the beach and 2 at Griswold Point. So these benches have been in place, some of them since 2006, so they're in need of repair and replacement. Some families say, oh, my bench is broken, or my bench needs repair, and we wanted to put language in this resolution that states that bench is the property of the city, and repairs are at our discretion, depending on the nature of the damage to the bench. So that was added by the Beach and Parks Committee as the language is the recommendation that they'd like to add to this resolution on the first page under the memorial benches. On the second page, they want to delineate where the sidewalk area would be, like if we did memorial stones. It said around the flagpole at the beach. They just wanted to make sure it said the flagpole by the Tyler House in case there's ever another flagpole put up at the beach in the future, at least it's done. And the idea would be to put like a stone walkway around that would lead up to the sidewalk that leads up to the stairs of the Tyler House. So when we run out of space for benches, we have an option for families to do something down there. And some of the other language is just cleaning it up because there was repetitiveness, like a written contract with the donor responsible for paying, cost of the memorial plus the cost of the memorial. So we kind of wanted to take some of that repetitive language out of this, so it's a little more clean and clear cut for the members of the community that want to do this. So, and then there's the resolution page that we have has the resolution in the middle of it too, so we're gonna take that out and make it just one clean document.
Councilor Rusk?
I didn't even raise my hand yet. Do we have a sidewalk memorial yet? Like,
We do not.
Okay.
We do not, but they're like planning ahead. We have about maybe 7 more spots for benches at the beach and maybe 2 or 3 at Griswold Point. So they're kind of looking ahead to the point where we may not be able to do benches anymore at the beach. So this would be an opportunity for families to do, parent mode, families to do their memorial for their family members.
How much does it normally cost for a bench, and how much would it cost for a stone?
So a bench, brand new, runs about $475. A refurbished bench is $75 for the refurbished bench, and then the price of the plaque, which run about it's all depending on how much language is on the plaque, depends, it's $115 to $125. Stones we haven't looked at yet because it's kind of, we've done a tree, we've done 2 trees, we've done one in the park and one at the beach. But the sidewalk stones is something fairly, I think it's gonna be something fairly new that we're gonna have to look at as we lose spaces to put the benches. So we just kind of wanted to make sure we had that in there. We'll look at a price and an idea of a stone, you know, if we wanna do a fairly large stone so they can get stuff on it. So it makes the walkway up to the sidewalk.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I need a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of
I'm
April
sorry,
1st.
can I ask one more question?
Oh, I'm sorry,
I'm
Councilor Rusk.
sorry. So if say I have a bench that I've paid the $475 for, and my bench starts getting in bad shape, at some point does it become not my bench and it gets refurbished to somebody else's bench?
Oh, no.
It stays my bench forever?
It stays your bench forever.
And at some point, you'll just
Yes.
fix it up?
Yes.
But it may not be right that moment when I'm
Correct.
saying I don't like how it looks?
Correct.
Okay.
We have an example, we have a bench, we have 2 benches behind the Tyler house that overlook the rocks to the water, and those get moved around, unfortunately. People like to move them towards the sun, and it's not necessarily the family whose name's on that bench. So we had one that cracked, the base of it cracked, one of the legs chipped a big chunk out of it. So we took we went and put, at our discretion, took that out during the winter and refixed that one leg. So those are things that we would stay on top of,
Okay.
because they are the memorial benches and they are significant to the families that, have them out there, so.
Okay.
But, the phone calls that my bench is broken, go fix it. We just want to make sure that doesn't, mushroom as more benches come, because we do have room for about 7 or 8 more at the beach.
I just thought of something. That brings us to, if there's only seven more spaces, and we're talking about as far as repairs go, we may want to look at, moving towards purchasing only new benches as opposed to refurbished benches.
Well, I think that's up to the discretion of the family. I don't want to force them to buy, if they can't afford a $475 bench, I don't really want to.
I understand that, but aren't we doing stones? They could
We
get
can,
stones.
yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
saying as far as
yep.
repair-wise, if we start getting refurbished, it's more repairs
I think
for us
once
to the
we-
cost of the city.
We'll get a price for what stones would cost, and then we can kind of start, lack of a better word, marketing that as an option
Yeah,
too for
as
families.
opposed to,
Absolutely.
okay.
Well, could people buy a stone just
Mhm.
in honor of somebody? I mean, they don't have to be,
Correct.
okay, thank you.
They
Don't have to be a memorial.
They don't have to be deceased, no.
Correct, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, I need a motion to move it to the mayor and council meeting of April 1st.
Second.
Okay, we have motion second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mary. All right, we're gonna go to 561, Groton Utilities Financials. I'll bring you up so that you can be next to Ron, so Richard, good day.
Everybody ready?
Sorry. Almost.
start on page 2 of the finance, which is really like the third page in. It's actually,
So number 39.
What are we talking about?
it's the electric comparative income statement.
Yeah.
It has page 2, or
Thank you.
42 of the
Is it page
UC
39?
packet.
42.
No, it says 2 on the
I
bottom.
see one of the,
And if you look where it has the Groton Utilities Commission, page number is 42 in the lower right.
I think it's one more.
That would make it easier.
Everybody there? Okay. Go ahead, Ron.
So this is the electric division's income statement for the month of February. So it's just looking at the 1 month. So we'll go through in line 25, which is a total revenue. You see came in at just over $5 million for the month, with the budget being $4.6 million. The reason for that, February was colder than the prior year, and again, as we talked about last meeting, the staggered in the budget of revenue kind of goes up and down based on previous year's projections and electric use. So this February was a colder February, which brought in more revenue than what was budgeted. Line 41, the operating expenses, you see that those came in at 4.3 million versus the budget of 3.8 million. The biggest factor there is on line 28, which is a purchase power. When you sell more power, you purchase more power. So it's kind of one of the offsets there. Which brings you down to line 52, which is a net income from operations for the month. So for the month, the electric department came in at 681,000 in revenues versus a budget of 744. So it came in just under budget of 62,307. So for the month, it pretty much was right on target with budget. If we go to page 3, which is the next page, so it should be the comparative income statement year to date. Kind of shows you the bigger picture where it is from July 1 through the end of February. The total revenues are above budget at, which is again line 25, $38 million, $1 million above budget. The total operating expenses, line 41, is 35 million. Again, about 1.2 over budget. And if you look up to line 28, the purchase power, you'll see that's pretty much the offsetting factor of the 1.2. So the operating earnings, which is line 43, was just over 3 million versus the budget of 3.2, so it's a little bit short of budget as of the end of February. Again, if you recall, January, we were under based on the warmer January.
yeah, but the earnings are still positive.
Still
they're not-
positive
yeah,
earnings,
So it's not
correct.
in a
It's
negative.
it's just short of the budget, what the projected budget was. But yeah, overall, and then if you actually go to line 52, which is a net income from operations, which kind of looks at the big picture, it's just shy of 3.2 million in the positive. So that's the summary of the electric. Go to page 7. We'll kind of walk through the same thing with the water. We'll start with the month ended February 21st. So line 21, the total revenue was 876,000, 53,000 above the projected budget of the 824,000. Total operating expenses came in under the budget at 711,000 with a budget of 853. And then line 32, the operating income was, came in, we actually, with the water department, had a negative budget just based on their retained earnings and their fund balance and the way that this budget was prepared. So you'll see they actually came in with an operating earnings of 165,000 against their negative budget, how it was prepared. So they're above budget of 195,000 for the month. So if we go to page,
Can I just ask a couple
Yeah.
questions? So What, can you just explain to me very quickly, like, what line item 12 is?
The Free City Water Service.
Right. Is this like random repairs, that kind of thing? I can't recall what this is.
I think those are the free services provided to the, some of the city's functions, like the sub-vets has.
Well,
the
the
water down.
sub-vets are not, but.
I
it's-
forgot which
it's
ones it is, but I can get
Definitely
that.
this building.
Right.
and
Right, so if
it's-
anything goes wrong, you guys take care of it, that's where the budget's coming from?
It's the actual water usage.
It's the water usage. Gotcha, thank you.
So that's one of the in-kind services that we get
Gotcha.
for
We can-
having a utility.
We can get the list of all those that flow through there.
No, it's okay, I just wanted to, I just saw that it was, the variance was, wacky, so just asked the question.
So then if we go to page 8, which will bring it to the year-to-date again, the July 1 through the end of February. The total revenues are actually $12,000 above budget of just over $7 million. So the revenues collected are right on target with budget. And then you go to line 30, which is total operating expenses. You see that those are short of budget by $1 million, coming in at 5.7. The reason for that is there's currently 5 unfilled budgeted positions within the water department. And the other piece of it is they have a lot of year-end expenditures that they will use such as the hydrant flushing and that type of stuff. So it's just kind of some of the things that they have, even though it's budgeted per se throughout the month, there's some things that actually happen at the end of the year that aren't budgeted all at once at the end. So
Can
if
I
you,
ask a quick question on
Yeah.
that? Are we looking to fill those positions?
Oh, yeah, we're actively, they're on the HR's board.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, we have had lots of interviews in the last few weeks, and it's just a continuous cycle.
Thank you.
It's slow because there's a lot of internals. So you open it up and there could be, it goes to the union personnel first, and then it takes a long time.
Sure.
It's hard.
Well,
Then you fill it, and then you have to fill that position.
right. See, I'd like to be able to just go out and fill, but you can't do that because the contracts are written, but you gotta offer it internal first. So if it goes internal, now you got another opening, so you fill that, but you got another one, and you end up leapfrogging that, and it's crazy. But it is what it is.
so if we look at line 44, which is the net earnings before the DWSRF grant, you see that the budget, like I had talked about, this budget was actually coming in at a negative $455,000 to use up some of the fund balance and retained earnings. They actually have a revenue of 1.2 million currently. So they're just, the operating expenses are not keeping up with budget, as I talked about before. So it's pretty much the water.
Anything on water? Okay, let's go to sewer.
So we'll go to page 12. And for the month ended February 28th. There, you see that the revenue budget was 398,000. The actual revenues were 439,000, so 40,000 above budget. Again, as we saw the last few months, because in the summer months we had the deduct meters, which we saw the big variance. Now without the deduct meters coming in the colder months, it's more on track with budget. Total operating expenses, line 26, pretty much mirrored budget at 215,000. Budget was 242, so just below. And line 28 is the operating earnings of the sewer department for the month, which is $225,000. So you see that the sewer is still in the positive as far as the operating earnings. The projected budget was 156 for the month, so it was over budget. Then if we go to line 13, the year-to-date, or page 13 rather, line 19, the total revenues year-to-date is 2.8 million versus the budget of the 3.3, which is a shortfall of the 472 again to the deduct meters that were not accounted for. Total operating expenses are below 241,000 below budget at just 1.7 million, just under that, with the operating earnings on line 28 of just 1.1 million. So again, it's still making money, generating revenue, just not to the same level as to what was budgeted.
Have we improved, as far as now from the beginning when, we started the accounting of this? Have
Well,
we gotten better?
You'll see that the revenue the last few months, because of the cooler months, has come in line with budget. I'm anticipating once we get to June, we may see it go back the other way if it's a hotter June.
And June will be the last month in this year's budget. We now have actuals for which we're using for the 2020 budget, right? So also, one of the things I wanted to point out is, although we were under budget on revenues, it looks like if you look annually, we're down to 14% as opposed to 25% at one point, because that was the major difference in that was due to the deduct meters. So now in the wintertime, the effect of the deduct meters is not as significant, so therefore, we're able to come back.
Amount of cash.
In the sewer. So in the sewer fund, there is currently, there was at the end of February, there was 317,000 of cash in the sewer fund. The city actually owed the sewer fund an additional 650,000, which was for when we issued the debt for that sewer treatment plant. There was some bond premiums that went along with it, and some unspent proceeds. So those were due back. That cash transfer was done, I believe, last week or 2 weeks ago. So there is roughly $1 million of cash in the sewer fund.
Is
Which
that
again,
on here anywhere?
that's it's
Page 13,
it's gonna be back in the balance sheet. I don't know if it.
This one, plus a couple
Yeah.
of others.
So on line, if we go back to page 11, which is the balance sheet. And then you go to line 24, due from electric. Again, the way that with the electric, water, and sewer, there's one checking account for the lack of it's really a pooled checking account. So you'll see that there's a piece in there that the money sits in electric, but then electric owes the sewer their portion, the water their portion. So this 283,000 is really sewer's cash that's sitting in an electric pooled checkbook. So that's the 300, and again, that $650,000 transfer didn't take place until March. So that was not accounted for anywhere in here. And in March, you're gonna see there will be an increase in the contributed capital, which is the line 10, and then all the way over to the right-hand side, the 1.6 million. This contributed capital is all of the assets that were transferred over from the city into this fund when this fund was created. So the plant, less depreciation and those types of things. So you'll see an increase in that as well as the cash.
Okay, any questions on sewer? Any questions on any of the three? Okay, that's it. All right, we're done with that. We're gonna go to 742, which is Groton Utilities. We have 4 resolutions here. The first one is for the Hayes pump purchase.
That's the primary pump. There's 3 primary pumps at the PAF facility. They've undergone multiple renovations and rebuilds, and at this point, instead of spending, it was gonna be about $20,000 or $25,000 to rebuild the pump, which this pump was done about 4 years ago. So for about $20,000, we've got about 4 years runtime. it was determined it would be better to replace the pump with a new pump, but a replacement in kind that matches the other pump so that it doesn't require any other changes in the facility. And it was priced out at about $90,000, and we should get more than 20 years before that pump has to be rebuilt again. So that's what this is. And I asked Ron to point out the amount of cash in the account because this and the two other items for the sewer account are unbudgeted, and they're going to be using the cash in the account.
Are we waiving this because of urgency?
No, we're waiving it because it was priced and it's a replacement in kind.
Okay.
And that way it actually fits with the appropriate head, the right bolt holes. And you're gonna find that on both the other two items as well, because they're existing facilities that you just wanna put the exact same pump is what the others are. They're matches.
Councilor Sheffield?
Okay, so we're taking $90,299 from actual cash out of the sewer account, and where would that leave us as far as money left over for sewer to make sure we're not?
So currently, like we just discussed, it would be roughly around 900,000 or somewhere in there once you take this 100,000 out.
So we're okay to, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're treating sewer as cash basis. If we don't have the money, we're not spending it.
Okay.
So that's where the money would come from. Any other questions on this resolution? Councilor Rusk?
What does the city say again about our bidding process like? I know why we're waiving on this one, but do we have any language that specifically says we need to put out for bid, or?
Well, this is the utilities procedure.
Well, either way, we would do this the same way, I believe. Even with the city's procedure, if you need to have this pump, there's only one manufacturer that provides it.
Okay.
Okay.
Don't let me misspeak.
That was the way that it was explained at the UC by Ray, that it was a sole source, that there was only one vendor.
This is the OEM. Any other questions on this? Okay, I need a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of April 1st.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Next item is for the Colonial Manor pump purchase for PAF.
This is similar as the last one in that it's a replacement in kind, but this is where one pump is spare and two are in the pit running. Usually what they do when they have an issue with one pump, they'll pull it out, put it onto the truck, or take it out and put the ready-to-go pump, slide it down the rails, let it go, and then they'll, at their leisure, work on the other pump, unclog it, do whatever they need to do.
Any questions on this? Okay, I need a motion to move this to the mayor and council's meeting of April 1st.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? The next one is granular activated carbon from Calgon Carbon Corporation.
The water treatment plant has granular activated carbon caps on the sand beds. The carbon takes out organics and some color and things in the water. That's what brings the water quality up. The new facility, by the way, is going to have deep bed granular filtration. So the whole bed will be the carbon filters instead of just the cap on top. The plant routinely tests these. They had planned on doing 2 of these this year, so we have a budget that can support doing 2 of these at over $50,000 each. We only need to do 1 due to the testing results. So that favorability that you saw in the water facility, it's good. If we don't need to spend money, we don't spend it. So that won't be spent. The reason it is sole sourced is because the granular activated carbon is similar to all the beds, plus it's a high-quality American product. And once they determined that there was one product that worked reliably, they standardized on that many years back. This is the product that is in our beds.
Any questions on this? Hearing none, I need a motion to move this mayor council meeting of April 1st.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Last one is the 2 Willow model impellers from Aqua Solutions.
These pumps are in the Plant Street pump station, and they take the pumps apart and they change the impellers. Well, they went to change the impeller and they found that the spare impeller was used but good. They took it out. They didn't have money to repair it, but it was put away with a small hole in it. They were trying to take the in-service one out, and that had a hole in it. The spare impeller happened to have a smaller hole, so they used the used but good, put that back in the pump and put it back in service. So at this point, they want to replace the in-service impeller and also the spare.
Councilor Rusk.
What's an impeller?
A pump has volutes inside it that spin.
Volutes?
It'll have like a mixer,
Okay,
except it'll have vanes that centrifugally push the water out.
okay,
So that action causes the pump to pump.
okay, thank
Did I
you.
do that right?
It's close enough.
Like making a cake, mixer.
I'll take that as sexist, it's all good. I just didn't know what it meant.
Nope. Is simplest terms is it's a spinny thing that moves the liquid around
Okay,
inside. You got the case, and then you got the impeller. The water comes up inside, and it gets pushed out through centrifugal force, and then that goes out. So it goes in as it goes out.
thank you.
I mean, that's the
I just
that's the
want to know what I'm
simplest-
voting on. Sure.
simplest explanation. Are there any other questions on this resolution? Hearing none, I need a motion to move this to mayor and council for April 1st.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Abstentions? And, no. Against and abstentions, okay, we're done. So let's go to, what do I want to do for 7? Let's do number 1, which is the appointments. And we're gonna move all these at one shot. So these are, thank you, Ron, these are reappointments to different committees. The first one's Beach and Parks, Board of Ethics, Groton Utilities Commission, Eastern Point Historic District Commission, Harbor Management Commission, and Planning and Zoning Commission. So these are people that are due for reappointment. Any question on them? Okay, I need a motion to move this mayor and council meeting of April 1st.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, that's 7, let's go, do I have for 8? Wait a minute, I missed 8. Oh, city budget, 690.
In the packets was the monthly summary year-to-date for the general fund. The month, at the end of February, the total general fund expenditures were $10,115,000 out of the budget 16 million. So they're leaving just under $6 million remaining of unspent budget proceeds, which is roughly 36.78%. When you look at from a year-to-date, a lot of the general fund budget amounts are mainly consistent throughout the year with salaries and payroll. So if you take that and just kind of do the math, dividing it out, every department should have roughly 33.3% of the budget remaining, just doing the end of 8 month. Some are a little more, some are a little less, but for the most part, all are right in line with that percentage.
Any questions on this? Counselor Sheffield?
Yeah, are we in line for last year at this time also? Are you comparing
I
this to
didn't,
last year? or do
I
you-
didn't run it to last year, no, to see
Okay.
where we were, but just kind of looking at it from the current year and where it is, the budget, everything is right in line.
Yeah,
There's no concerns at this
One
point.
of the things that I wanted to do was bring the budget to you monthly so you can see the spend. I wasn't really looking to do a comparison. If council wants to do that, we can do that later. But what I'm trying to do is show you on current budget where we are on current budget. Because one of the things that's important to me is so that you guys know that we're not overspending or underspending our money.
I have a question to Ron. You do a monthly breakdown of budget to each department head?
All department heads have access to Springbrook to look at
Yeah.
their reports. If we are requested to do them, occasionally we'll run them out, but for the most part, I believe all department heads are looking
I
at.
thought that was
Yeah.
the way it was.
Yeah, they do. I
Yeah.
ask,
Right.
because I want to know where we are.
Yeah. I remember I used to be anxious
Yep.
to get mine.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, now
If I was
everybody pretty much has
in
the
line.
read-only access to
Yeah.
their budget lines and to see the GLs.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this? Okay, the next one is 746, actuarial cost estimate for 2019 COLA for pre-2016 retirees.
So this is something that comes through every year. It goes to the retirement board first, and what it is the current year's calculation for COLA, which it talks about in the resolution how it's done. It's the last 12 months, average COLA increased by a factor of 25%, and then in whatever that change is for the average, and in no instance shall that amount exceed 1.5% per year. This year's COLA, when they did the calculation based on the format, it came with a 0.64% COLA increase, and this would pertain to all retirees through 2015. So this went through the retirement board. They recommended to do the COLA increase, and that's why it's with you tonight, or for your consideration.
Yep. Any questions on this? Okay, I need a motion to move this mayor and council meeting of 4-1.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay. 747, sister cities. Okay. Remember several months ago, we talked about the sister cities with Haifa, Israel, and Kingston, Jamaica? Okay, there is a, let's see how to word this, a request, if you will, to send an official letter to them, and John Burt has already sent one. The town of Groton has already had a resolution. He sent his letter. This is, what you have before you is an example of the letter that we would send. Mayor Mike Passero is going to bring this to his council in April as well. And then the three of us will send letters to Haifa, basically extending an invitation to be sister cities for them with the three of our three cities. And so that's basically what I'm looking to get from you. We'll move it to the next council meeting and then we'll vote on it. And with your concurrence, I will then draft a letter, send a letter, sign and send a letter. So all three of the municipal entities will send it off.
It doesn't mention anything about Kingston on here.
No, this is just for Israel right now.
Okay.
Because that's what right now, the three of us are going this route, and then I'm sure Kingston will be next.
Okay.
I don't know when next is. But you're right, this is just a Haifa. Counselor Sheffield?
I didn't see the town listed as a town doing a separate contract.
Town did a separate,
Okay.
did you not get the towns? Okay, this is the template. John Burt's already sent his, and Mike, Town Manager John Burt, Mayor Mike Passero will be doing one in April. So this is the template that we were given. We got this from, Joe Courtney's office. Okay. Any other questions or comments on this? Maybe then I need a motion to move this to the mayor and council of April 1st.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, the next one is 748, which is a donation request. We have three. Okay, the first thing you have is how much we have spent. We have a total of $5,000, is what our ordinance says, right? So we spent $3,250. There are three asks. One of them is for the Fitch graduation party, which is, what are they asking for? Whoops, sorry. Fitch is asking for, did they put,
I don't think they put a number.
well, they didn't, but they have.
It's
if
not
you
the,
look
it's
at
not the
tier-
scholarship.
If you look at tier of sponsorships,
Yeah, this is the
okay,
hospital.
let me walk you through this. The very
Ah,
first
gotcha.
page is how much money we've spent.
Right.
So the second page is the resolution. And then if you go to the third page, this is the Fitch cover letter. And then the golf tournament is underneath that. And then the next, this is their 501c3 information. And then after that is the Groton Bank Day request. And then after that is the Groton, let's see, this is the sub-vets for the clubhouse. So these are the three separate donations. And we have a total of $1,750 left. Total. So the first thing would be to determine if you want to contribute to any or all of these, and then how much amounts any and all. Now, for the Groton Bank Day, I think there might have been some confusion, at least there might have been some on my part, but, because the council has already given $1,000 to Art on Groton Bank, and I was under the impression, and I thought somebody had said that if we do that, it's all inclusive of Groton Bank Day. But when I talked to Jackie Kopp, who was the chair of the Groton Bank Day group, she said, nope, that's a separate group. So you got the Groton Bank Day, which is the bank in the, I know. Well,
I missed that. What
it's,
happened?
it's an ask. It's not a demand. It's
Sure.
not a, right? Well, what happened was, Art on Groton Bank got here before Groton Bank Day did. And if you look at Groton, Art on Groton Bank is part of Groton Bank Day, right? So there was an assumption, I guess, if you will, that they were gonna share funds and that it was, if you contributed to the other one, the $1,000 is gonna be split between the two, but that doesn't look like that's the case.
So it would seem we've already given to Groton
Well,
Bank.
No, we've
that
given the
is
art
cer-
100.
You're giving Art on Groton Bank,
They're the
but
same event.
you can,
Same thing.
the Art on Groton Bank is the art specifically there. The Groton Bank Day is the tour of all the historic sites. So they are separate and distinct, although they happen on the same day.
Right.
I don't know if that's does that clear up any confusion that may exist?
I mean, you're cutting checks to two distinct entities,
Right.
right?
Is it for the same thing, though?
No.
I believe the
I
check
mean-
goes to the same entity.
Oh, does it?
I believe so. If I remember right from last year, I think it was used for the different purpose, but the check still went.
Okay. All right.
So
Well, then I don't,
we could write a letter back to them and say they can distribute it as they see fit.
Well, and there, I think that's a valid question. Can we do that? Can we ask them to split the check in half?
Sure.
It's a donation. That's what our intent was, you know, to.
Yeah, because I think our intent was that it went to Groton Bank Day, or on Groton Bank, whatever
Okay.
entity it was of
So
that.
500 each, not a problem, I'll let them know.
Okay, I just from your description, it sounded like two separate entities, but if it's the same, I
Well,
agree.
If I
that
recall from last year, that both,
Well, I don't-
they're two separate, but I believe both checks went to Art on Groton Bank and they
Well,
distributed, but I can verify that.
Well, and I think, well, here's why I think the checks went to the same place, is because they were using Art on Groton Bank's 501c3 status. Because Groton Bank Day Group Committee did not have 501c3 status. Anyway, I am on this committee. I can tell you that these guys the Groton Bank guys are using advertisement they're renting a van from Groton Senior Center along with a driver. There's gonna be handouts and brochures and things like that. Art on Groton Bank, you're familiar with that, with the separate things that they have there. So the Groton Bank Day stemmed from, last year was the first year. It was based on the Connecticut, basically all the museums and everything were open for free on that day. And so the group here said, we're gonna have Groton Bank Day, and it's gonna be on the same day as Art on Groton Bank, and they'll go together, use them together. Councilor Rusk.
I think we all agree they're both great services or great
Sure.
events. But I think our intent initially was that that money kind of be split between the two.
Okay, not a problem. I'll send them an email tomorrow and make sure they know.
We have, I'm sorry, one more final, we have $1,750 to spend before June,
Before the end of the year, before 30 June.
Through June 30th, right?
through June 30th. Thank you.
Okay, so that leaves us with the first one is the Fitch Party. This is the sponsorship for golf tournament.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
The max for each is 500, or is it is it 1,000 or 500? The max donation that we can.
It said, according to our ordinance, it says no request shall be more than 20% of the amount kept for donations. So $1,000 is the max we can spend.
I was looking at the Fitch thing, and these bronze, silver, gold, and platinum, it all has like within their donation, like
Yeah,
it has like an entry to the tournament, and I would assume that unless one or two or more of you guys are tempted to go golfing, we should,
Oh, that could be fun.
we should probably look at buying up multiple, if we can, maybe multiple green signs or T signs, as opposed to just giving one, say, silver, gold, or platinum. If you look down here, it says T signs 150, which I imagine would say the city of Groton. Maybe we could get a few of those, up to a certain amount of whatever you guys think is.
up to council. Councilor Russ.
So this golf tournament is the major sponsor for the drug and alcohol-free grad party
That is
that
correct.
happens right after graduation. I know that the city and town did not sponsor this last year, because I was part of this. I think it would be great to do either, a couple of T signs or a T sign and a green sign, whatever we want to do. I don't think we have to make a huge contribution, but I think it'd be great to make a contribution. These are our kids.
The other thing, just noted on here, next to the right of where it has the T sign and the green sign, it just says any monetary donations are also greatly appreciated. So you don't have to feel like you need to buy every T sign or green sign.
Good to see it.
And we don't have to golf.
So if you want to do one
Say
sign
City
and then do an
Groton, though.
additional monetary
Yeah.
donation,
So, for sure, or if you want to buy, you could, if you do the it's up to you guys.
Right,
What do
2
you
and
wanna
2 or something.
Still
or-
get a T sign, you know?
I think
T sign would
we
be
could do a
good.
T sign and a donation.
Mm.
Right? Is anybody opposed to that, or have any alternative?
Well, if you're gonna do a donation, get something for it.
Yeah, that's why I said we should at least do a T sign.
Do a
Right.
T sign,
You
do
know,
a green
T-signs.
sign?
Get more T signs or get T signs and green signs.
Because this probably will not be the first request for, as a fundraiser for the graduation party. This is just one event. But I would agree, we should get something for our money.
So would you like to do 2 T signs and maybe 2 green signs? That's 500 right there.
Yeah, I think that would
Okay.
Okay,
Unless somebody
there's
wants to
500.
go.
work.
I'm a terrible
It's a
golfer.
fun day, I'm just letting you know.
2 greens and 2 Ts, that's 500. All right, not a problem. All right, the next one is, or the last one is sub-vets. This is, where are we here?
Are you going to move whatever you do together, or do you want to move what was just discussed for the golf tournament as a separate motion?
I move that we,
Okay. Then we'll do it as separate.
oh, yeah, we'll move the Fitch High School grad party golf tournament to the next meeting.
Second.
Okay, and we'll do it for a
500.
total of $500, 2
Right.
T signs and 2 green signs.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And we have a motion second, is a second in agreement with,
Yeah.
okay? Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, let's go to the clubhouse. This is, what are they asking? They're asking for anything, but this is to support the clubhouse because it's falling in disrepair. They don't have, the dues aren't gonna be enough. So it's up to the council as to one, whether or not this falls under our requirements, and two, whether or not you want to donate some money to these guys. You know, I will tell you that the sub-vets are active in our community a lot.
I think we should support it.
I do too. I mean, we're the submarine capital of the world, right? So
We are the submarine capital of the world.
Yeah, and a lot of retirees, military retirees use that facility.
Jeff Walsh, he does a lot of outreach too.
Yes, he does. Okay, so the agreement's yes, so how much do you guys want to do?
Yeah, how much do we have left?
1,250.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
well, we just spent some.
1,250. That's
Okay.
That's how much you have left, because we had 1,750. We just got rid of, we didn't, just allocated 500, so.
I'd like to do 500.
No, this is what, my math?
Yeah, 750.
We're almost at the end of the year.
Right.
I do agree, we should leave some, you know, and even if it's a little now, and then we can go back and do a little before, you know, before if we, I don't know.
Do we have any, I'm sorry, do we have anything else that we typically get that you can think of offhand? I feel like we've hit the major ones already.
The one that came in later last year, I believe, was Riverfront,
And I think Little League also.
and Little League may have come through, right, with one. I'm just trying to think of, was it towards the end of June? I think we had a couple.
Can we?
Little League opening day, by the way, is April 27th.
Okay. Can we revisit maybe in the June meeting, in one of the June meetings, everybody that we've donated? Can we
Sure.
move that now, just so that if we do have funds left after Little League, after Riverfront, or whoever else may come up, that we can allocate
Okay.
this money? I think that'd be.
So
Great
in that, okay, in that case, there was a recommended amount of 500. Do you guys want to go with that or alter that? Thinking that Little League may come in and
Yeah.
Riverfront
I
may
agree,
come in?
I agree that we should help them out, but I just don't want to be, you know, where we're having to decide who to give money to, and we know people that come back every year.
Well, this.
So, and that's why I said, could we give them a little bit now, and then, if they need it now, you know, and then possibly give them whatever is come up with a different amount after, because we don't have, we can give more than one donation, you know, it's not, there's no time frame on this.
Right.
Well, we could, I mean, we don't have to do 5, we could do 3.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, we can do a little bit now, that way we have some reserves, and then we can always, at the end of the year, when we have money, give the remaining to them, you know? But we
Yeah.
should definitely give them something.
Do we know how much we gave Riverfront and the Little League last year offhand?
Riverfront may have been 1,000, because I think I don't think we had everything spent, and I don't remember what we did for Little League, but I can get that for the next meeting.
Thank you.
So I'll change my motion to 3 on my recommendation.
Counsel?
Whatever, I agree with whatever.
Are you guys okay with 3?
I'm okay with 3.
Okay, so we'll need a motion to move this one to the mayor and the council meeting of April 1st for $300.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, one last resolution rather. 750, which is a service station equipment. That should have been on at your seats. You guys have it? Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So this is, what you may not know is that we have a gas pump, but we also have a diesel pump. And our diesel pump is in the fenced-in area of Public Works, and that pump is starting to exhibit signs of failure, and we'd like to get a new pump, and the cost for labor and equipment is $24,518.15.
Is that for the pump, or does it have any?
So what that is, the tank is still fine,
That's
so
what-
the
that
holding
was
tank
my
itself, so
question.
it's truly the pump and the system on how the fuel is actually distributed. So it's more like the distribution piece of it. That pump was, in talking to Tim, was moved here in 1997. When they built the garage, came over from the old garage, it was the best of the pumps that they had there, so that one actually transitioned over. In November, it began misreading, and I think it was charging departments like a 4 for 1. They were getting charged 4 gallons and it only pumped 1. So it was inaccurately taking those measurements, and the police, I believe the police may use that one. The fire definitely uses it for their trucks. So all the departments have access to that and can use that pump. It's not just truly a public works pump. So we need to accurately monitor those readings in order to charge the correct departments their usage. What happened in November when that started happening, they ended up finding like used parts to fix the pump. So it's just a matter of time that's outdated and them trying to get the pumps. This will allow it to go up to the same software that's currently being used with the gas pump that we just did 2 years ago, I believe it was. And it's the Fuel Master system. There's a key reader. So right now, that pump out back only tells you which department fueled up. With the new system, it actually tells you which vehicle fueled up along with the individual who fueled that vehicle up. So everybody has their own identification PIN number along with the vehicle having a fob type.
Yeah, it's got a fob key
That
that
are programmed.
recognizes and authorizes.
So it'll be more accurately tracking, and it's all a computer-based program, so instead of going out and taking manual reads and that type of stuff, it'll all come in. So it's just to upgrade that pump.
Councilor Rusk.
How much does it save? I guess, is this standard that every city does this, has their own fuel pump for their vehicles? Okay.
I'd imagine.
Yeah.
They do, the town just recently spent a lot of money because their tanks were outdated and they needed to replace them. And one of the things that they came to us about was for a short period of time was to see if we could work together. And there was some challenges with that, so we weren't able to do that. But yeah, everybody has their own pump, because we get filled from East River as our supplier, because they're the low bidder on the,
There's a consortium that we purchased
Okay.
for, and East River is the one that
Right.
delivers for that,
yeah.
And it saves the city money, yeah.
because you're buying
Okay.
in bulk. And we actually enter into a contract estimating the number of gallons that we anticipate using for the year.
What's the expected lifetime now that, if we get these parts? Or is it a replacement? Oh,
It's gonna take that pump right, that 1997 prior vintage pump right out of service, put a new pump in.
Okay.
I don't know the exact useful life of how long they expect, but it'll at least get it up to date and where
Sure.
parts will be available
Be
again.
here longer than you.
Gotcha.
He's
I'm
young,
sorry, you
maybe
said
not.
something about like parts and looking for parts, but I maybe I got that mixed up, so. Okay.
Yeah, the one that's currently there.
If you look at the thing, it talks about, remove existing gas boy pump, install a new Bennett single product one hose digital suction pump, and then there's a list of other stuff that they're looking to do.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, I need a motion to move this to the mayor and council meeting of April 1st.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion, opposed, abstention, motion carries. Okay, next thing is, we need a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 1-206 Alpha to discuss personnel, police department, to include the council, police chief, and chief, help me out. Christopher Ewing.
So moved.
Okay, we are in executive session. There will be no business coming out of executive session.